Hi, welcome to valuationpodcast.com, a podcast and video series about all things related to business and valuation. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide online divorce mediation and valuation services in St. Louis, Missouri. Today, we will discuss business valuations and changes in the IRS for 2022 with a former IRS auditor, Mike Gregory. Mike Gregory is the founder and owner of Mike Gregory Consulting, LLC. He brings 28 years of experience with the IRS in a variety of capacities. During his last 11 years with the IRS, he was an IRS territory manager with responsibilities for up to 23 states, with an emphasis in business valuation and specialist issues nationally. He's also was involved with creating and talking to the IRS about the discounts for lack of marketability and also reasonable compensation. The other book that he has written is called The Collaboration Effect, which basically brings together neuroscience and kind of negotiation techniques in order for you to work with the IRS if you needed to in some capacity. We should kind of tell people more about how you get involved because you're really a great resource for the estate attorneys when they get this information or when somebody gets the IRS, notification, right? Can you tell us more about kind of how people have gotten you involved towards the beginning? Because this isn't something that you want to be like, oh, well, if we go to court, we'll hire Mike. No, that's not the time. Right?
Yeah, the best time is prevention. Prevention is the real key. And most of the time what happens is an appraiser will say, I've done these. I'm doing one right now for an appraiser. They're a specialist. They've done over 20 in a given market segment, okay? And they said, I'm anticipating I'm going to expand on this with what I do is sell myself as I'm an expert in this area because I've done over 20 of these. But I want you to critique my report. And after I critique, and this person has got 15 years experience in being an appraiser. So after I critiqued it, I came back with all this information. The person said, wow, you brought up stuff I hadn't even thought about. And I'm going to do that on this report. But this company now has another one here too, entity B. And on entity A, I paid for it myself. This appraiser paid for this review on my part themselves. And it cost, I'll say, around $3,000. So then I came back and you're going to ask me to do this. And I said, I've done this with an appraiser recently, and we did 6 of them over about 4 months. And I said, the first one was 8 hours. The last one was 1 hour. And now we're done. The person had a holding company in one. They're all different type. 100% control on one, had a gift with small percentages on another. And it was a matter of they all have different things that you want to be addressing. So the preventative part, it doesn't have to be me. There are other people who do this too. But I think work that right into your billing. So for this first one, that appraiser I'm telling you about, and this most recent one, paid for that as they're out of their own pocket. But the second one, they went back to the same client. They're doing 2 of them. We're going to put that in the billing this time. Mm-hmm. So you have this because it's worth it for you to have this done because it's a completely different type of entity here too. So yes, I'll be doing that. And when you ask your client, is it worth it to you to spend, X number of dollars, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a review, not for review, for a critique, for IRS purposes to reduce the probability of an audit. And the estate tax attorney doesn't want to revisit this again in a year or 2 years or 3 years. They want a clean slate, and their client does too. So if you want to sleep better for 3 years, maybe it's a good idea to do that. And then if you're brought up on exam, we want to approach this with collaboration. You know all about the collaboration effect. We've talked about this. And it's about connecting relationships and listening actively to them and educating them the way they want to be educated so you can build bridges and negotiate closure. So I'm very much oriented as we want to approach this as a collaboration to come up with what's reasonable here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that, part of it is really interesting because, a few $1,000s, $3,000 to $5,000 to have somebody review it when an estate is doing 10 valuations, there's already a significant cost involved with it. Why wouldn't you just do kind of the icing on the cake, right? Make sure. And reality is that, even a valuation person working with you, like I'm thinking, shoot, I probably have to have you review some things too, because we get too far in the weeds. When you're doing 5, 10 estate valuations, you're so far into it that you really do need kind of an outside person to say, does this make sense? Did you mean to do it like that? And it saves face, I think, for the valuation expert as well. Like that's the worst thing that you want to happen. Now, after this conversation, you make it not sound as horrific as it would be, right? Because there could be penalties applied if you were to do the valuation incorrect. The penalties could go back to the valuation expert. I mean, there is some risk that we take on, and some people feel that it's a greater risk than others. I get that. But this is just a way. I mean, if I had you review it once, you would give me so many salient things that the reality is I should go and take those things and change my templates, right? And
Right.
put them in so that it's just part of the process that we determine. And I think a lot of people will say, well, I do some of these things in my report. We get it. We understand. But are they hidden? Are they in footnote 256?
Mhm.
And is that really going to be effective? And it's understanding when you have more of that risk. If you have an estate that's 10, 11, 12, 15 million, and then above, obviously, but even in that threshold of where that exemption is, I think is a big, like really, I think that that's an area that you want to be concerned with too, because that's the ones that we're doing a lot of. Of course, you get the $1 billion ones once in a lifetime, right? Maybe twice. Things
And,
like that.
and I'm really pushing back on the weak narratives. I mean,
Mhm.
you've talked with the client, you've done your valuation, you think you have a strong narrative. But then when I come back and look at the narrative, I'm looking to say, does that tie in with what you said on the growth rate? Does that tie in with the adjustments that you made? Does that tie in with where this firm is going in the future? You're valuing it today, but going forward. So do your numbers seem to make sense? And
Mhm.
when a third person looks at this, you know it because you've been involved with the client. I've never talked to the client. I don't know anything about the client. So
Mhm.
when I'm looking at it, I only know what I know. I only know the report. That's what the valuer has. That's what the IRS auditor has.
Yeah.
So I'm putting myself in the shoes of. I mean, I ask a lot of questions. I'm a mediator. I ask a lot of questions. When I'm critiquing it, I'm asking a lot of questions. I don't know what this means. Or can you explain that in lay language? And I might even.
Mhm.
This is where I might take the editor and I write lay language of what I think it should be, but I read at the comment. I may not be right with what I wrote. But this
Right.
is what I think it is from what I've read of what you've written, because
Yeah.
you want to write this so that that agent says it's reasonable to me. I don't even need to get a valuer involved, and I'm
Right.
even reasonable with your analysis. I'm going to accept this thing. That's your goal. That's your
Yeah.
goal.